Well, hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today you see a guitar sitting on this desk. We haven't done a lot of guitar stuff in a while. I've been trying to keep things more to photography on my YouTube channel because everyone says you should pick one thing and not go out into all sorts of eclectic different subjects. That's sort of been the story of my channel, where I always do eclectic different subjects, but I am me and I'm going to do the things that I want to do on the channel. And recently I was like, oh, it's time to do a setup on my guitar, and I thought it would be fun to do a video on that. So this is something I do every, like twice a year, usually around in spring, late spring, and then usually getting into fall, maybe not quite before winter. And it's just as the temperature changes, the atmosphere changes around. I live in the Pacific Northwest. It starts getting drier in the spring. Obviously in the fall and winter, it's super wet, and things can change just how your guitar is. So I don't do this every time I change the strings. This is something that I only do twice a year. I check the setup of my guitar. Now, this isn't the initial setup. This isn't when you have just gotten a brand new guitar. It hasn't been set up at all from the factory or anything like that. This is where it should be fairly dialed in, and I'm just going to be checking the relief of the neck, the truss rod. I'll be checking the intonation when I put new strings on. I'll be checking the action. I'll do the little maintenance things that I do twice a year. I don't do this stuff every time I change the strings, like I mentioned, but I'll be lubricating the nuts and the saddles, or the nut and the saddles. I'll be wiping everything down, getting it clean. I might do a little lubrication in the machine heads if necessary. So this is the twice a year deep maintenance, checking the setup that I do for my guitar. The guitar that we'll be using here is my Fender Telecaster. This is my dream guitar that I saved up years for, ended up ordering from the custom shop. It is a recreation of a 1960 slab-board Tele. So it has the one-piece maple neck with the thick slab of rosewood for the fingerboard. There's no skunk stripe on the back because the truss rod was put in on the top of the fingerboard, and then the slab board of rosewood was put on top. It has mostly vintage specs, so it has the truss rod adjustment here at the neck joint, or where the neck joins the body, instead of up here, as modern guitars have, but that isn't a problem. I'll show you how to do that. It's got the 7 1/4 inch radius for the fingerboard, which is vintage spec, so that changes things slightly when you're doing your relief for the neck and your actual action, how high you want the strings to be. Before we do any of that though, I just want to kind of check to see where things are right now. Has it moved that much? So I've got this long straight edge. This is from STU-Mac. I'm not going to put links to all these things, but I will mention where I got them from if I can remember. But this is just a nice long straight edge from STU-Mac. So instead of having to put a capo here and then holding down here and checking your relief that way, you can just use this straight edge. I'll put it across, and at about the 7th or 8th fret, I will check the relief. So I usually go for about 0.010 inches. So if you are using the metric system, I'm sorry, but this is what I use. Fender recommends for a 7 1/4 inch radius neck that you do 0.012. Actually, it does have millimeters. So that is 0.305 millimeters, 0.010 or 0.010, which I usually use, is 0.254 millimeters, and then 0.008 is, it's kind of rubbed off, I think 0.203 millimeters. So I want it around 0.08 or 0.010. So I'm going to put the straight edge here, and basically I'm taking these feeler gauges and I'm going, so if you know where your 7th fret is, it's right here. And I'm just going to go under and see. I am not able to get the 0.10 under there. I am able to get, well, maybe. Let's see if we go to the 8th fret. Okay, so the neck has definitely moved. There's not enough relief in the neck right now because I can't even get the 0.08 or 0.0081 in here. Usually do it at the 7th fret. So basically, if I do it from this side, you'll be able to see a little bit better. This is my 0.008. This is as little relief as I would like on here, and I cannot get it under the feeler gauge. So basically what I'm trying to gauge, the neck should have a little bit of relief like this. There should be a bow in it a little bit, and I want to be able to get that feeler gauge in between the fret and the straight edge. So it looks like the neck has moved a little bit. If that's the case, then what I'm going to do is loosen the bolt in the neck, because if you loosen it, it'll let the strings bow the neck up a little bit more. If you tighten it, it'll pull the bolt tighter and it'll straighten the neck out a little bit more. It'll resist the strings a bit more. So already it looks like I'm going to have to do something with the truss rod. How is the action looking right now? I got this little thing. It's from Fret Guru. And this is a handy little measuring device. It has all sorts of different things for measuring string action, string spacing, all this stuff. I use the 64ths because, again, I live in the US and I don't use the metric system, but I usually go for about 5/64ths for string height on the bass side and about 4 on the treble side. So what you would do, you go to where the neck meets the body and you put your gauge in there, and I am right about 5 there. So interestingly, even though the neck has straightened out a little bit, there's not as much relief, I am still about where I want to be as far as the height of my strings. And on the treble side, yeah, I'm a little less than 4/64. I used to think that I always wanted really low action, and that just isn't really the case for me anymore. Basically, I don't have enough room back here. I just don't want my strings to buzz. I'm getting a little buzz here if I'm hitting it hard. I also want to have enough string that I can get my finger under it, or I want enough action that I can really get my finger under when I'm bending. And this feels a little low here. I'm going to check one more time now that I have the guitar here in kind of a better spot for me. I'm going to check with my 0.008 feeler gauge. And yeah, there is nothing. So we definitely need to adjust the neck. In fact, if I look at this closely, I don't know if I see any relief in that. Sometimes you can look down the guitar and kind of tell. And God, that almost looks dead straight to me. So some people will have a dead straight neck too. It's just what you want. I'm not saying that these are the settings and these are the things you need to do for sure. This is just what I like to do. I also printed out, just for the fun of it, these instructions from Fender. This is how do I set up my Telecaster guitar properly. You can just find this on the support website for Fender USA. And I thought we'd maybe go through some of these, and I'll talk about things that I do, things that I don't do, that they say you should do. They start out with a list of tools needed and stuff. They talk about strings. They say no matter what gauge of strings you use for the best tuning stability, we recommend using Fender strings. I don't use Fender strings. I use these. These are the, I never know how you should actually say this, D'Addario NYXL. And these are the 10 to 46 gauge strings. So they're just kind of normal light. 10 to 46, I use these because they tend to last very long for me. I don't want to have to change my strings all the time. And I like these ones. So what I'm going to do now is we will take the strings off. We will do a cleaning, and then we will restring it. We'll check the neck relief once I have the new strings on. That's another thing too, with the older strings, there might not be as much tension in the strings. They might loosen up, so that might make your neck change a little bit, so it might change once we get a new set of strings on. But I'll just show you how I clean everything, how I lubricate for new strings, how I oil the fingerboard, which again, I don't do every time. It's usually only a couple times a year. So let's start with the strings. I'm just gonna loosen everything up. And then we have this little tool. I can't remember who makes this. This is D'Addario as well. Has a little snippers on this side and then a string winder on the other side. We'll grab about 3 of these unwound strings, cut those, get a couple of the wound ones, cut those. There we go. Now I love the vintage tuning pegs because you can just pull them right out. These are my favorite kind of machine heads or tuning pegs. I don't like the modern ones. I don't like the locking ones. I think these are the easiest and they seem the best as far as tuning stability. They got them right the first time. I don't know why they changed them. I so much prefer them. And if I had a modern guitar, I used to have a modern Tele. I took off the modern machine heads from there and put vintage ones on because I just think they're so much better. I'm gonna try to wrap these up so they don't go all over the place. We will place those down there. And then as far as all these babies, we'll take them out. Okay, so now that I have the strings off, I can do some cleaning. I'm gonna place this down. This is a little stand that I got from StewMac as well. Just a cheap little stand for your guitar neck. Okay, so what I like to use, and again, I'm not saying that you all should do this, but I use this stuff. Brillianize. It is supposedly a plastic cleaner, but it's really great for hard, shiny lacquer surfaces. Now, I'm not gonna say it's totally safe on every kind of guitar finish that you might actually have, but I've used it on my nitro guitars and it's been totally fine. I don't just spray it all over though, but I will take a cloth like this. This is just a lint-free cloth, and I will douse the cloth a little bit, and then I will wipe down the guitar. I like to get in all the places that I can't normally reach when I have strings on. It's just a nice excuse to get everything nice and clean. Get into all the hardware. Sometimes when I do this, I might actually get some contact cleaner and get at the pots and everything. I haven't noticed anything getting scratchy here though. One thing I want to do is take the strap off, so I've got some strap locks on there. The little rubber fender ones that are nice. Let's take this off. It's another good opportunity too when you're doing this to check, you know, are your strap lugs getting loose? Do you need to tighten those up? Just check all that stuff. This all seems nice and tight for me right now. Let me redouse here. And we're just getting anywhere we can. I can't get totally in between all the saddles and stuff, but I'm going to show you something here in a minute that can. If you've been playing like crazy, you may need to kind of scour your frets. I have very nice sweat. The oils in my fingers don't seem to do much to guitar strings or guitar finishes, so I don't have a lot of issue with that. Some people, if they touch a guitar, it just immediately corrodes the strings and it makes everything all gloopy and weird. I luckily don't have that issue. I can play quite a bit. I usually wipe my strings down, but I don't have to worry about things getting all nasty just from me touching it, like some people do. Let me get into the headstock here. Okay, now I'm just gonna get a dry one, make sure everything is nice and dried out. Oh God, that smells so good. Nitro lacquer, gang, smells amazing. Okay, so if you do have any dust and stuff that you're trying to get out of the saddle area, Puludiki cleaning gel, universal dust cleaning gel. I love this stuff. It's amazing for guitars. Even if you have your strings on your guitar, I don't know if this can be shown now, I will put this just on the headstock, you roll it down and it'll get all the dust off. Some people don't care about that. I kind of like having it clean. So here, you can just push it over the bridge lift it off, and all the dust is gone. It's amazing. You want to make sure you don't leave any residue, but it usually doesn't. And it's just great. So Puladiki Universal Dust Cleaning Gel, I highly recommend. Now, the fingerboard. I like to oil the fingerboard when I do this twice a year. Don't put too much oil on it. You don't need to be oiling it all the time. I have this Music Nomad F1 oil. You could probably use anything. You could use 3-in-1 oil, whatever. And I will just put a couple little drops. Not too much, not too much. Nothing is coming out. Okay, a little bit there, a little bit there. We don't need to go crazy, just tiny little dots. And then I will rub them in with my finger. Maybe I needed a little more than I put on here. But again, you don't want to coat it like crazy. Doesn't matter if you get some on the frets, that's no big deal. Then I rub it in and get the sides. I'm trying to get it close into the frets. Okay, and I'm going to leave that to soak in a little bit. Then, what I like to do is take a little bit of this stuff. This is Tune It Every String Change Music Nomad. So this is your nut butter, as some people like to call it, or it's basically a little bit of lubrication that you can put in the saddles or the slots, string slots in your nut. You can put a little bit on your saddles as well. And just basically any point of contact where strings are hitting metal or other things where there can be stress, if you put a little bit of this on here, you will probably break your strings less. Now, it's easier if you have a toothpick or something. I'm going to use, where did I put those? The end of one of these strings. So I will take the end of one of these cutoff strings and I will take some of this. I will place it on this cloth that I already used, just a little bit. And then I will get into each one of these slots in the nut. Not a crazy amount, just a little dab will be fine. Got a little much there. And then I will also put a little bit on the saddles, just kind of where the strings are going to be. And I find that that helps, especially I have the vintage style threaded saddles on here. And they can be string breakers if you're not careful. These are actually intonated ones. I can't remember where I got them, but they still look like the vintage ones, the barrel saddles with the threaded look to them. And they work pretty well. Since I don't have 6 individual saddles on this guitar, it's a little harder to intonate than it would be, but it works just fine with these ones. So it's this style saddle you may have seen. Okay, so the fingerboard has been soaking a little bit. We have put our nut butter on, or whatever you want to call it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and rub off the excess oil. We don't need to leave it on there all day. This has such nice rosewood on this guitar. I really love it. Nice and dark. It's a beauty. All right, do we need to do anything to the machine heads, to the tuners? I don't think so. There are little dots where you can place a little drop of oil if you wish. I don't know that I need to. They seem to be turning just fine, but maybe I will just for the heck of it. Again, a little goes a long way. You don't need to go crazy with this. And then I may take that same little bit of guitar string and just get it in there. Make sure it gets into the mechanism and then just give them a twirl. You also could take a screwdriver, just make sure all your tuning peg screws are nice and firm. Just check all the hardware. Okay, so the guitar is clean. The fingerboard has been oiled. I have placed some lubrication in the nut slots and then on the saddles. Now it's time to actually put new strings on the guitar. I'm not gonna go too crazy showing you every little step of that. I'm sure you probably know a lot of it already. You don't need to see all that. I'm gonna put strings on and then we will be back. New strings on the guitar. Let's do a quick tune. Actually, I should give them a good stretch first. I usually just give them a little wonk like this. Up and down. They're gonna move quite a bit. Don't need to get one of those string stretchers or anything too crazy. You can just give them a little wonk like this. I usually tune and then strum vigorously. Make sure my mic is not gonna be hitting my guitar here. Okay. Okay. It is in tune. Now we are going to check how the relief is now that I have done that. So again, we're going to use the straight edge that I've got here. I will place it on. I'm going to try with the 0.008 or, I can't read any of these things, they're all rubbing off, 0.203 millimeters or 0.008 inches. Here we go. I still can't get the 0.008 in there, so I definitely need to put a little bit more relief on the neck. Now, oh no, it's a vintage spec guitar. That means you can't adjust the truss rod unless you take the neck off. No, no, no. With a Stratocaster, that might be the case, but with the Telecaster, the pickups are not connected to the pick guard, so you can just take the pick guard off and you can actually adjust with the tool that I have here somewhere, maybe. Where is it? Did I forget it? Okay, let me get the tool. It is this. This is something that I got from Stu Mac, I believe, and it's a little wrench that you can use to get into the truss rod adjusting bolt inside here. So, let's take the pick guard off. Make sure you don't strip the screws out. Make sure you don't mar the finish. Oh, one thing I should mention is if you're rubbing down your vintage spec guitar, if it is a custom shop 1960 Telecaster like this is, when they put the water slide decals on the headstock, they don't spray over with nitro. They just put the water slide over the top because that's what they did in 1960. So the first few times I cleaned this guitar, I didn't realize that I probably shouldn't be rubbing on the headstock. So I did rub off part of the water slide decal, which was the Fender logo. I'm okay with it. You just need to be careful of that. But you will definitely notice a lot of vintage guitars that are actually from, 1960 have parts of the water slide rubbed off because that was something that happened. So the longer I have my guitars, the less I care about them getting dinged and having issues like that. It's just part of what the guitar is now. And maybe it's a little more authentic. But yeah, you don't want to get the headstock wet if you have an older guitar, because that water, or if you have a vintage spec guitar where they put the water slide over the headstock. Okay, so we can just reach here. This is a 3-ply vintage correct pick guard. We're just going to pull it through nice and carefully. And here you see we have this little adjustment thingy here. I am going to loosen this because the neck is too straight right now. You can see my hand. If I loosen it, the strings will pull a little bit of relief into it. And I'm not going to go too crazy with this. Let's see where I can get this. We will put, if I can reach it with this, like this. And I'm going to go about a 1/4 turn or so. If I can seat it in there. Here we go. Loosen it a bit. Okay, now I'm going to tune back up to pitch because that might have changed things a little bit, and then I will check the relief. My feeler gauges are at about there. We're going to use the 0.008 first at the 7th fret. Okay, 0.008 is getting in there. Hopefully you can see this sort of. Let's see if the the 0.010. Wow, okay, that's even getting in there. Let's see about the 0.012. No. So that's about where I like it with the 0.010 or 0.254 millimeters. And it's very tight there. I can't get it in the 7th or the 6th fret. I barely can. I can sort of on the 8th. I can't really on the 9th. That's kind of where I want it, I think. The Fender specs, if we read these, they have a section on intonation, roughing out intonation if you're setting up a guitar for the very first time, lubrication, string breakage, truss rod. So they say that with the 7.25-inch neck radius, you should have 0.012 inches of relief, or 0.3 millimeters. And then with a 9.5 to 12-inch neck radius, you should have 0.010. I do the 0.010 on the 7.25-inch radius, and it works fine for me. So now that that's where the radius is, sounds like it's already out of tune again. Let me try it. I think I'm pretty happy with that neck relief. And I want to check now, using our little measuring card here, I'm going to check what the action is at the 17th fret, right where the guitar body meets, and we are a little higher now. So we're slightly over 5/64, maybe, yeah, it's in between 5 and 6/64 on the bass side, and then on the treble side, we are still right around 4, which is just about right. The Fender specs, we don't have to go by these, but I think it's just interesting. They say string height, bass side, 5/64, and then treble side, 4/64, so that's 2 millimeters and 1.6 millimeters. I like the action. I used to think that I liked action super, super low. I thought that was the best, that was the made it easiest to play. And then I realized that's not really true. I actually like being able to get my fingers under the strings a little bit when I'm bending. And I also don't like fret buzz. I really hate fret buzz. I mean, I don't care that much, but right now, I'm hitting them hard, and I'm not really getting much buzz at all. Maybe just slightly there if I'm going down the neck. I'm not really getting any string buds anywhere. And it's mostly just about how it feels. If I push here, I don't want my fingers to go totally under the string, obviously, but I want them to I want it to hit sort of halfway on the meaty part of my finger here. And if the action's too low, I find that harder, where your finger can kind of just slip over top. This feels pretty good. I'm saying that's pretty good. So we're about 5/64ths, or no, I think we were closer to 6/64ths. Yeah, right about 6/64ths on the bass side. And close to 4, almost 5 on the treble side. I might even want to go a little higher on the treble side, but we'll see. I think I'm going to let me check the relief on the neck one more time before I put the pick guard back on. Let's lift her up. So we've got our 0.008, good, 0.12 or 0.012, no, so we're right around 0.00 or 0.010, which is right about where I want to be. That's this one here. Is it? Nope. All of these are just totally rubbing off now. Here it is. Okay, so we have the 8, the 10, and the 12. That's right around where you want to be, and we are right at the 10 right now. And I like that. Okay, now we can put the pick guard back on, and I will do that now. One little tip I have for you here, you're screwing screws into wood. You don't want to do this 1,000 times and screw up the actual threads. So one thing you can do to make sure you're properly seated in the threads is go the opposite direction. You'll even be able to hear this. You hear that? It is seated properly in the threads now. Then you can go righty-tighty. And that way you'll make sure that you don't strip out. Whoa, we don't want that to happen. Geez, that's dangerous. That could have gone right on the finish. Okay, not great. We'll be careful of that. So here we go again. You have your screw here. You can hear it seating. And then you're not going to cross thread. You're not going to strip anything out. Just a little tip. Okay, now it is time to check intonation. So I'm okay with saddle heights, okay with string heights. There is one thing you can do. I've got this little radius gauge. This is a 7 1/4 inch radius gauge, or radius. It's a gauge for a 7 1/4 inch neck radius. So it's basically the way the top of the fretboard is curved, like so. So this is 7 1/4 inches radius. So if you imagine a circle with a 7 1/4 inch radius, you can use this when you are first initially setting up a guitar, and you can get it under the strings. It's a little harder once the strings have been placed. And you can just use that to make sure that you are where you want to be. And it looks like we are just about perfect here. So that's just something that you can use when you're actually setting up your guitar for the first time. But our sets, our strings, and that's, you'll basically adjust this with the posts on your saddles, go up and down to make that work properly. You can do it, I think it's the same radius on the bottom as it is on the top, maybe. And that looks just about right that way as well. So if you have one of these when you're setting up the guitar for the first time, that can help. But we should have already been there because I've had this guitar set up for a long time now, the way I like it. So we have our neck relief where we want it. We've got 0.1, we have 0.01, so 0.010 inches of neck relief, which is good. I've got my string height about where I want them. And I'm gonna tune up again now, because these strings could be moving a little bit. It seems like they're holding about where I want them. Okay, now we're going to check the intonation. So, how you do that? You're basically you're dividing your scale in half. So this is I think it's 24 3/4 with a Fender. Your intonation is checked on the harmonic of the 12th fret. So if you hit this, you have E. The harmonic on the 12th fret should be E as well. And we are really damn close on this. Okay, let's try the A string. Yeah, looking good. D string, looking good. G is perfect. B is right on. And high E is right on. So with these saddles, like on a vintage Fender Telecaster, you can't adjust each string perfectly. I did get these slightly offset intonated saddles. I can't remember where I got them from, but they look just like the threaded barrel saddles that they had on the 1960 Fender, because I wanted it to look authentic, but they have just a slight offset to help the intonation a little bit. When you don't have these, if you just have the straight barrel saddles, you're just gonna have to get close. You'll have to split the difference between your E and A string, for instance. One might be slightly flat, like the E might be slightly flat, and then the A might be slightly sharp. That's just kind of where you have to go. These ones, with these intonated saddles that I have, I'm just about perfect. My E is basically right green center with just a slight shade of sharp, and then my A was right green center with a slight shade of flat, and that's perfect for a guitar like this. Like, it's fine. You're gonna be totally fine. And then my E, my high E is absolutely perfect, which is great. B, perfect. G, perfect. D is just slightly flat. A is just about there. Oops. And my E, yeah, I'm well within where I want to be for the intonation on this guitar. So if I had to change the intonation, that's where you get a screwdriver. It's a little annoying here. I'd want a longer one because the angle of this is kind of tough. I wouldn't want to scrape on my finish. And is that a screw? Yeah, sometimes they're Allen heads, sometimes they're Phillips screws. On this spec, it's a Phillips screwdriver. And you might need to loosen the strings a little bit so you can move these saddles back and forth. But basically, if you were too sharp here, if your note was too high on this saddle, so you're adjusting both of these at the same time, the E and the A string, you would move it back and forth to get a nice median between the two strings that you're working with here. So sharp or flat, whichever way you had to go to adjust, whichever way it was. These are all pretty much perfect, so I'm not gonna have to deal with that. And that's pretty much it. That is a setup for my 1960 custom shop Fender Telecaster. This is in Sherwood green metallic. It has a 7 1/4 inch radius neck with a I think it's a 9mm slab board piece of rosewood on there. Beautiful guitar. I absolutely love it. I've had it for several years now. I still play it all the time. It's my main guitar. I wish I could show you just the finish here. There's some beautiful checking on this. I got the Closet Classic, so it wasn't actually, there was no damage to it before I got it. It just had kind of slightly aged looking hardware. The lacquer on the neck was a little darker, a little more vintage. And I think there was a little checking on the finish, but every ding and dent I have now, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here. These are all from me. I'm careful with my guitars, but you know, things are gonna happen eventually. Nothing on the back really. Well, there's a couple tiny little dents. And yeah, that's it. My guitar is set up. I'm going to enjoy playing it. So no buzz, perfectly intonated, good amount of meat under the strings for me to grab them if I want. And that's exactly how I like it. So thanks for watching. This has been just kind of a, I guess, self-indulgent sort of video. I wanted to set up my guitar. It's time to set up my guitar again and just check the neck relief and the intonation and all that and give it a good cleaning. And I thought it would be a fun video for you to watch as well. So until next time, until we meet again, we'll probably be back to some photography stuff in the next episode. But until then, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things, setting up my Fender Custom Shop 1960 Telecaster in Sherwood Green Metallic, which was a color available as a custom color at the time. In case you think this is not vintage correct. I'll see you later. Nobody cares. I do, but nobody else does.